Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
All in. Like we're not gonna do this and toes in the water and it's a little cold. Like it's until the wheels fall off, no matter what. You don't get this stuff without a fight sometimes. You know, I hate cliches so much, but you know, freedom isn't free. Day one, we started really paying attention to the politics and to the science. We kept people safe, and we have to this day with over 300,000 visits to the facility and still not a single case linked to our facility. We've always operated with a sort of an understanding that if you say something, you're going to do it. You know, from day one, when he and I started working alongside of each other, it was a handshake deal. It's symptomatic of a bigger problem that we have culturally, is that nobody wants to do any hard work anymore.
Is it pork roll or Taylor ham?
It's pork roll.
There you go. Hang with us, Ian.
This is Ian Smith from Attila's Gym, and you're listening to Airey Bros Radio.
So I think the first question, most important question, this is a question we ask all of our New Jersey guests. Is it pork roll or Taylor ham?
It's pork roll.
There you go. Hang with us, Ian. Right on. Yeah, we've had a couple wrestling coaches, NCAA coaches and stuff that are from North Jersey, and once you get above like the bridge, it turns into Taylor ham territory.
Taylor ham, yeah. I've never had Taylor ham before. I don't know.
So I guess my first question would be: before March of 2020, would you have considered yourself as someone who is red-pilled?
I would say actually probably pre-March 2020, I think I was more black-pilled. I was kind of, I got into the dynamics of like politics post 9/11. You know, I was pretty young when 9/11 happened, but I remember wondering why something like that would happen. You know, I think I was like a sophomore. I was a sophomore in high school, and I just remember being fascinated with the fact that something like that, like what causes something like that to happen? What's the cause and effect that leads up to something that catastrophic? I started to kind of look into just what our government does and how it operates, and the good things that it does, and also the not so good things that it does. And I voted for Ron Paul. I was a huge Ron Paul supporter. He was somebody that really I strongly identified with at a young age, because I still do to this day. You know, I love the pro-liberty stance. I love the traditional, American values of kind of earning your keep and leaving each other alone and kind of do no harm, and that libertarian approach. And when I watched what happened to him, how they manipulated the media, how they edged him out, stuff like that, that kind of led me to realize that politics is a very dirty game. So I would say more black-pilled, like I didn't care. And even necessarily Donald Trump, but the movement behind him, and the people that I met, just in that time, kind of gave me hope back into politics, I would say. And then when March came, coronavirus was a point that we decided that we were going to fight, and that this country was something that was worth fighting for and worth saving. And that you don't get this stuff without a a fight sometimes. I hate cliches so much, but freedom isn't free.
Yeah.
And that's where we wound up as a result of coronavirus.
And was it ever, after that 15 days to flatten the curve, was it ever a heavy discussion with you and Frank, or were you guys initially right from the get-go on the same page and fuck that, we're opening back up?
So we only owned the gym for 8 months before coronavirus hit. We bought this dumpster fire of a gym, and which was fine. We knew that we could turn it around. We had tons of experience in the field, and we had a vision, and we had longstanding reputations in our communities, and we knew that we could turn around, and we did from day one. But 8 months into it, you tell me to shut my new business down that I had just put my life savings into. Neither of us were very comfortable with that idea, but we weren't confident enough that this wasn't as bad as they were saying, that we would have been okay with opening up. But we were very skeptical from day one, and we never stopped working from day one. And from day one, we started really paying attention to the politics and to the science. Far smarter of the two of us, especially when it comes to the science. And we learned everything we possibly could, and we followed the politics. And within 11 days, we had decided that if they weren't going to open us in 3 days, that we were going to start formulating a plan to open up. And our plan was simple. We were going to go so far above and beyond what other businesses were allowed to do, that it would be laughable to close us down. That we would, we had a 15-point safety protocol that was so far above and beyond what was necessary. We even at one point we brought in an epidemiologist in to study our protocol, not only our protocol but how well it was enforced. And at the end of the study, he said there's absolutely no business in the country that's, he's like, no federal building is doing this, no hospital is doing this. We kept people safe, and we have to this day with over 300,000 visits to the facility, and still not a single case linked to our facility.
Yeah, so you guys did all the things to open the gym, and we're one of the first businesses in the country, I believe, that were open, and they started slapping you guys with the fines and everything. When all those fines started coming down, how did you keep the mindset of you're playing your own game, you're staying in your lane, and those fines don't matter? We're going to do what we need to do, and that will take care of itself. How were you able to keep your conviction throughout all this? Because I'm sure at times it got really stressful.
That's I realized I actually didn't really answer the previous question, and that's kind of a segue into it. Frank and I, when we decided to reopen, it was, we've always operated with a sort of an understanding that if you say something, you're going to do it. From day one, when he and I started working alongside of each other, it was a handshake deal. I was a personal trainer. I came in and said, "Can I use the space to open a training studio?" And he said, "Yeah." And he handed me a key that day, and he said, he's like, "Listen, this is how I make my living. Don't screw me over, but go ahead." So I've always known, no matter what our difference is, if we have any issues in business, I always know that he's going to say what he said he was going to do. So you have a business partner that's always going to watch your six, no matter what, no matter how ugly it gets. I mean, he's proved that to me, and I've proved that to him countless times. So when we reopened, it was the understanding, all in, we're not gonna do this and toes in the water and, oh, it's a little cold. It's until the wheels fall off, no matter what, that we were, and we had to be really sure of what we were doing. And we were, we didn't reopen for 2 months because we spent every single day formulating a plan, trying to understand what was going on politically, learning everything we possibly could about the virus. We were so sure of our protocol that we were comfortable opening our doors with the idea that people could come at us and say, "You're getting people sick," and we had the burden of proof on us just because of the panic of the time. We had to prove that we weren't, because at that point everybody was getting everybody sick. That was the narrative at the time, asymptomatic and this and that. And, It just that the lunacy was at its all-time high when we opened. So we had to be really sure of it. And once you're that sure and you make that promise, whatever came, no matter how hard it was always, hey, this is what we said. We said we were going to do this. And the harder it got, I think I can speak for Frank. When I say this, the more sure of ourselves we became. It turned into a fight much bigger than we thought it was going to be. And it's gone on far longer. It's still going on. But with every day that goes on, we know we're more right. And it becomes that much more important to stay the course no matter what. And we really, people credit us for it. Like, we have people come in the store every day. People that aren't even members that just stop in, and people always thank us. But the reality is that we couldn't have accomplished what we accomplished if it hadn't been for this massive support network that we built. On those days that you asked about where it's really hard, where it's like, damn, we're getting fined $15,000 every day, like you're racking up 75 grand in a week. That's more than our monthly revenue, like right there. Including like all of our streams of income, including training and all that. You just have to, you lean into that support system, and you have to stand firm in whatever convictions you have. This has made me more sure of myself as an individual than anything in my life has, and I'm thankful for that, because it's made me stronger in that sense, and we've been tested and tested and tested, but we always remember why. And I tell this one story all the time, but it's one of many, if not one of hundreds of thousands that we've heard. There's a guy that comes into our gym. He is a highly decorated Marine veteran. Tours in Afghanistan, 2 Purple Hearts. He's been blown up twice, had to relearn how to walk. This is a guy that you want on your team, a guy that will do anything to protect his country. You know what I mean? And he's an awesome guy. Normally, before coronavirus, he would come in the gym about 7 o'clock every day, and darker, because he's just sweat through everything. And when he leaves every day, he can go home and he can be a father to his 2 children, and he can be a husband to his wife. And without that outlet of the gym, he can't process the things that he's seen and done. Because the only help he gets from the government is some pills from the VA. And on his own, he's got other vices that are just as bad. And the gym is a place for that for a lot of people. They turned public health into this one-dimensional entity. And the reality is that public health is extremely complex. And when you overlook things like that, you're doing a grave disservice to your citizens. And on the opening day when we reopened, hundreds of people out in the parking lot, news cameras. We open the door, and our members are right here to the left, and they're all wrapped around the building waiting for us. And he's first in line. And he came up to us. He gave Frank and I a big hug, and this is a guy, like I said, he's an absolute warrior. And he gave us a big hug, and he said, "I love you guys." He's like, "You guys are my heroes." And that kind of stuff, there's not a bad day in the world that you can't get through if you think about what could have happened to him if we didn't open. You know what I mean? And that's one story of 100 I could give you. So that was what we dug into on those really, really hard days. And we still dig into it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And that's, we're gym rats ourselves and lifelong athletes. And one of the biggest aspects of going to the gym is that community environment and that feel, whether you're going in and doing a workout and shit talking with your buddies, or just having that accountability to get out the door and get there to meet people, knowing that they're going to be there to train with you, and they took that away from us. And the other thing is, they keep talking about public health, but there's no real talk about getting healthy. It's just about pharmaceuticals. And as someone who had an incident at a very early age, where I was almost one of those third leading causes of death by doctor when I was 11. I've been screaming about it since day one. Is like, why aren't we talking about health? Why are we shutting down gyms? Why aren't we talking about supplements, clean water, all these sorts of things? And it's just insane that the most important things, health and wellness, and these things, no one is talking about. It's just, you need to get this shot.
Western medicine, for all observable, from what I can observe, it has been completely hijacked, and has really lost its way. I'm by no means a doctor, nor do I claim to be extraordinarily smart. But I have worked with the human body for about 12, 13 years now. And I've learned a lot about it just from being around it and watching what it can do when it's given the right treatment. When you move the body and you move it well and you move it correctly and you move it often, the body heals itself. When you feed the body and you feed it correctly and you feed it often and you feed it quality stuff, the body heals itself. When you sleep well and when you find time to make sure you de-stress and all of these things, the body does incredible things. And Western medicine nowadays paints this picture that we are these like fragile, just like weak beings who are like susceptible to every germ in the world. And the reality is that's so far from the truth. But they're not educating people how to be healthy. Like you said, we don't even learn that in school anymore. Like health, what do they teach in health class these days? I would love to look at the curriculum. You're talking, they're so far off the mark that it's not a mistake. This stuff is not being taught on purpose. People are so disconnected from their bodies. They're so disconnected from just this idea that you can be healthy with very minimal tools. Like you don't need the world's best doctors and all that stuff. And that's not to discredit them and say they don't do great things, because there are a lot of doctors who do amazing things with Western medicine, but a lot of it is just hijacked by the pharmaceutical industry, where if you're sick, it doesn't matter what's causing it. What only matters is what can fix it. And it's always a drug and it always costs money. We're not getting to like the root causes of things. Like we're to the point where we're prescribing pills for weight loss instead of just teaching people how to eat correctly. Like that you shouldn't be going to the doctor for weight loss pills. Your doctor should say, here's the information. You need to go get yourself a nutritionist. You need to go do this. You need to go do that. But it's, oh no, here, just take this pill. And you got some high blood pressure now? Don't worry, just take this one and just take this one. And next thing you know, you're this cash cow. I read an interesting statistic, and I'm probably off the mark. So it's not exact, but I think it was the United States is somewhere around 5% of the world's population, and we consume 80% of the world's pharmaceuticals. That right there is a statement that should blow any person's mind. And then look at the current situation of the United States and where we're at culturally and politically, and who influences most of our policy. And it's the same people that are feeding us 80% of the drugs that are produced in the world.
Yeah, and I think one of the craziest things about the past year and a half is you can't even talk about food or nutrition. You can't say to anyone who gets sick, whether it be the C word or any other things that have been around. It's like you said, go to the doctor. Rich and I, we talk to our family, like, how's your nutrition? What's your fitness plan look like? Well, that's not going to help anything. How crazy are we as a society is you can't even talk to people about like, hey, maybe you should get rid of some of the carbs in your diet and just eat, chicken and vegetables and go for walks.
Well, it's symptomatic of a bigger problem that we have culturally, is that nobody wants to do any hard work anymore. we live in the instant gratification society, and it shows everywhere. It shows not only with our physical health, but our mental health. People are addicted to like quick dopamine hits off of their phone instead of meaningful, like things like going and taking a walk. Like I can't tell you what it did for my mental health when I live in New Jersey here down by the Delaware River, and I walk my dog every day, and I make sure that I'm there and we're unplugged, and it's 20 minutes a day, and people don't even know how to do that anymore. Yeah. And people are, because everybody's just addicted to this all of these quick, very superficial things, and it's everywhere. Look at our financial health. Most people in this country live paycheck to paycheck. How is that possible? You know what I mean? Like but it's all symptomatic of that same thing. No, but nobody wants to put in the hard work. Nobody wants to sacrifice. And I don't mean to generalize, but there's too many people who don't want to put in the hard work, who don't want to make sacrifices, who don't want to be disciplined, who don't want to be held personally accountable. Like, God forbid you're talking about coronavirus and you mentioned the fact that most people that died were extremely overweight. Like Instagram will mark that as hate speech these days. And that's crazy, because it's like, oh, well, I'm sorry. I told you an objective fact that if you're severely overweight and you do come in contact with any respiratory issue, even the flu, your likelihood of dying is like times 10. And it's like, no. You, the healthy person, has to quarantine and lose your job and take a medical procedure that you don't want to, just because somebody was overweight and died. They've attached this existential guilt that we're all supposed to carry for people who can't take care of themselves, or people who just die. Like they've glorified death into this thing that I guess it's not supposed to happen anymore. And a lot of people have drank that potion where I don't know what is the goal now. The goal originally was to flatten the curve. Some almost 2 years ago. We're over 600 days at this point. So it's like, what is the goal now? Just for nobody to die ever? Because that's the direction we're heading. Like, we're going to be living in bubbles. If these people continue to push these crazy policies. You look around the world. You look at Austria. Unvaccinated people starting Monday can't leave the house except for like 2 or 3 reasons. That's pure lunacy.
Yeah.
When you're talking about something, again, once we're not talking about something with a 99% death rate, we're talking about something with a 99% survival rate, even higher.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they get off the rails and wondering if this is like the push for transhumanism or the metaverse, whatever rabbit hole you want to go down. But the stuff in Austria is really kind of scary. And I just saw something too where something similar is happening or being proposed in Germany. I did see the police, and I believe it was the military, had said that they were not going to enforce that, or they were going to stand in protest with that in Austria. But yeah, it's a wild world we're living in right now. Getting back to Attilis, watching from afar, we see the support. You guys have support from around the world where people are buying merchandise and the coffee and all that sort of stuff. But then it also seems like the township and maybe the county, they did not have your back. Was that a surprise? Did because we talk about making changes, making them at the local level and doing things locally, and then, acting locally, but thinking globally kind of mentality. Were you surprised by that, or was that kind of expected coming from the municipality and the township and the borough?
Well, no, we weren't surprised. The people of the town support us, for the most part. Obviously, you have some people who think we're annoying, and some people who disagree with us. But for the most part, either people think that we have a right to do it, or people outwardly, and strongly support us. The governing body of the township, it does not agree with that. That's South Jersey for a long time, and New Jersey for a long time has been a Democratic machine. And with the way that the Democrat Party has operated as of recently, these are the people that are pushing the lockdowns most. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of Republicans either, but the Democrats seem to be more crazy with this lockdown stuff, and Phil Murphy was obviously in charge of it all. So when a fully Democrat town council came and took our business license, we weren't the least bit surprised. It was a big dog and pony show. We knew what the vote was the day before by an anonymous phone call that said they're going to take your business license, and the vote is going to be 5-1. And when I went the next day, the vote was 5-1. And they kicked the guy off the town council who voted for us. So it didn't surprise us one bit. It would have been, and we had mayors of other towns come in support and say, hey, listen, like, if you guys ever want to move your gym, like I'll give you a business license in my town. But no, that didn't surprise us at all. And you're correct when the move right now should be to act locally. You're seeing that. We saw it here in Jersey. We had a whole bunch of flips of regular people who kind of got in, and not really like career politicians at the local level, but a lot of people who had never been in politics before, and now are deciding, hey, I'm going to get involved. And already it's changed the landscape of what we're looking at with some local politics. So that is definitely, I think, the thing that people need to focus on most is what solutions can you provide in your immediate area.
Watching from afar and talking to family members and friends back home, you hear certain things about New Jersey, and then being here in Denver, which is a pretty liberal, progressive city, at times I was at my wit's end going crazy. So I've been able to escape here and head back home to visit for different family events or functions or whatever. And we're originally from Ocean County, which typically tends to go red in most elections and stuff. And so I went back in April, and I was like, oh my God, like, what's everyone talking about? I don't see people walking in the streets with masks. Like, I'm walking down the sidewalk here in Denver, and I literally have people crossing the street just to not be on the same sidewalk with
You'll
me.
get that in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So it's this weird thing where, at least with our circle of friends and stuff, it's like we have this community in New Jersey, and I know the attitude of most Jersey people are they're going to get to a certain point, and whether it's, closing the gyms, or now you're talking about injecting 5-year-olds, eventually you're going to push those people, the majority of those people in New Jersey to start to see red, no pun intended, and stand up and fight. But that was one refreshing thing with being back in New Jersey. The 2 times that I did visit, was it seemed like, there's a lot more middle fingers flying in the air than there are here in Denver. We literally had my parents' next door neighbor. He has a big 4x4 truck similar to yours, and he flies a big FJB flag in the back of his truck. And I was like, he called me up and he's like, how is it? I'm like, I see American flags all up and down the beach. I think it's pretty good. We don't see that in Denver at all.
Yeah, no, we, despite what our elections turn out to be, and that's another story in and of itself. Jersey's becoming a very aggressive place for people who are with this pro-liberty movement, and it's not even red anymore. I call it like the new right, which is kind of just everybody who's left standing kind of in the center, with the hard left that the progressives have taken. I think they alienated a lot of people, and they're alienating more and more every day with this this crazy stuff that they push. You can only virtue signal for so long before you start running out of road. And I think a lot of communities are waking up to it. You've seen it with the traditional Black and Latino voters, who are now more than ever, like looking around and being like, these people are assholes. You know what I mean? Like they're really starting to run out, and you're seeing it. You have probably the most unpopular duo of a president and vice president right now. I was laughing the other day. I'm looking at their approval ratings, and like they're barely clearing 50% approval between the two of them. It's like, I think when you get to that point where so many people are like, again, like the fuck Joe Biden thing that turned into a nationwide chant of "Let's go Brandon," where you have literally everybody saying it. I think you're starting to see a lot of people come together and move towards this idea that, hey, maybe so much government isn't a good thing, and maybe we need less involvement from the federal level and more involvement in our communities and stuff like that. And I think that's probably the best thing that's come out of all this nonsense.
So with that said, and the past year and a half of your stands, has there been a lot of people kind of encouraging you to run for office, and has that been a thought in your head at all?
Yeah, it's something that's been said quite a bit. I think it was said as a joke, like at first, because it was just, I think it was at the time when we were reopening, it seemed like people were just saying it kind of joking, and it's become something that people have really not let go, and you hear it a lot more. I don't know if it's something I'm interested in. I would love to be a part of changing the political process, but I think I may be more useful to that outside of the sphere of politics. But I don't know. Watching some of these more regular guys get involved, maybe that's something that I should consider. Being another regular person who says, all right, I'll be in politics for a little while. If it was something that I would do, I think it's something that make it very clear and try to lead the way so that others start seeing politics as a civil service and less as a career. We really need to get back to this idea that, like, all right, I'll run for mayor in my local town. I'll do it for one term or two, and then I'll go back to running my auto body shop when I'm done, or whatever it is. Because like that's the way politics are supposed to be. If you've read any history about George Washington didn't want to be the president. He reluctantly filled that job. After the war and stuff like that, he wanted to go back to living his life. He had done his service. He did his service in the military, and politics was supposed to be the same thing. It was supposed to be, your service to your country, to make sure that you're protecting your community at the local level or at the state level or at the federal level. It wasn't supposed to be something where people get involved for 40 some years and become multimillionaires. So maybe we should see more of that. Regular people getting in and throwing their hat in the ring. So it's something I would consider. But like I said, I think I operate a little bit better outside of the box. I can't see myself wearing a suit every day. That's for sure.
I don't know. I think that beard will look good in a suit. But I think you bring a valid point with the civil service and just people having pride in where they come from. And I know that's something that's not very big nowadays, is to have pride where you come from or be proud of what you do. So I think you're doing a civil service and just showing people that, hey, you can do things for yourself, and just because the government's telling you something doesn't mean it's right, and you don't have to let it affect you. Have you had a lot of small businesses reach out for pointers, or, hey, how did you get this going? Where can I start to kind of open my business up?
Yeah, we did, especially during the height of the lockdowns. Unfortunately, there wasn't really a plan. People were looking for like this, like for us to have all the answers. And the reality is, in doing that, you are betting on yourself very heavily. You're betting on yourself that you're going to figure it out and you're going to make it work. The game plan for Frank and I was the gym will open every day, no matter what. And we'll figure the rest out. And that's what we would do. It's every day was, okay, How do we keep the gym open today? What do we need to do to make sure the gym is running? No matter what comes our way, whether the health department's knocking, whether the police show up, whatever it is, we are keeping this gym open because that is our right. It's our right to be able to feed our families. We were not putting anybody in harm. That was crystal clear already at that point. So it was hard giving people because what people needed was not a plan. People needed the courage to do so, and that's hard to give to somebody because people were scared. And it sucked for a lot of people because most of these people who were affected are people that have never had any run-ins with authority. Like these are people who probably the only experience they've ever had in front of a police officer is like a routine traffic stop. And so you had to be able to confront the cops. You had to be able to say like no to a police officer, which is just something I don't think a lot of people were prepared to do because that's just very foreign to them. I don't think that is something that should be foreign to people, and I think that now people are starting to learn, you've got to stick up for yourself. I say it all the time to people. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to open your business. It didn't matter if Donald Trump got back in or what, there would have been restrictions. There would have been this, and everybody was kind of waiting for something to happen. And the reality is you have to take control of that. And we would try to encourage them. And, it's really all we could do, especially because you don't know what was going to happen. Every state, every county was all using different tactics to shut businesses. There were police involved. There were sheriffs involved. There was health departments involved. There was, whatever. What Gavin Newsom was doing was different than what Phil Murphy was doing, so it was hard to give people direction, not knowing what was coming.
Yeah, when you talk about that courage, you almost with some people, business owners, it's like, what do you fear more? Do you fear more of losing your business and not being able to support your family and possibly losing your house, or potentially getting put in handcuffs and take it to jail, maybe having to have a fine or go to court? It's like, I was just amazed at some people that were just willing to kind of bend the knee for as long as they did, and not, at one point or another, just say enough is enough. I'm more afraid of losing my house and not being able to feed my family but then they start giving out, they start printing money like mad, and then they made it a lot easier for people. And now it's you walk down any street in Denver and there's a help wanted sign somewhere, because so many people now have decided, well, it's easier for me to sit on my ass and maybe eat Cheetos, or on the other side of that, where some people who had desk jobs whose lives became better, because then what they've always wanted to do is like, I can do this from home. Why do I have to keep coming to this office every day? So
a lot of people's lives got better.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I used to be a special education teacher for 11 years too. So I saw that on that side of things too, where, and that's one of the biggest supporters of Phil Murphy is the teachers union, where, well, yeah, I don't want to go to school to deal with these kids. I'd much rather sit in my pajamas and have my coffee and do it, through Zoom. So
there was definitely some intent behind some of this. If you're able to weaponize people against other people, the coronavirus made it really easy for a lot of people to live a better life, and all they had to do was pretend to be afraid. And that's the truth, and people will deny that until the end of the time, but their actions always prove otherwise. All these people, I won't name any names, but I've got a list of them that I know, and I'm sure pretty much anybody could make the same observation. I watched so many people who claimed they were afraid to go to work and they needed to work remotely and the kids shouldn't be back in schools, and yet they were on vacation. Yet they would go out to dinner with their friends and take pictures for Instagram, and it's like the hypocrisy was unparalleled. And these are the people that would be screaming at you if you didn't wear a mask, or, whatever, or these are the people that would call us during like the height of the lunacy and scream that we were killing people. And it's like, no, we're not. you know, like you're going along with it because these are the useful idiots. You know, this is not the first time we've seen something like this where a portion of the population is weaponized politically against another portion. But you know, you said it very well in the beginning. People didn't want to look at the forest through the trees, and they didn't want to kind of see what was going on there, because it was a scary truth. And the scary truth was that, and it remains, if you continue to comply, you are going to lose everything. If you continue to keep your business down, you will lose it all. And that's really scary for people to come to terms with that reality. So it was easier for a lot of people just to not confront that and be like, oh, well, you know, I'm comfortable here. I can get a little bit of money, and maybe if I just hang on another week, it'll be okay. You know, what Frank and I saw very early was we're going to lose everything. And our choices are one of two things. Either we just turn it over and just, you might as well just say, here, take it now. Or we're going to do everything in our power to keep it, you know, and if that's a bumpy road getting there, it was something that's worth fighting for, you know. And the business wasn't even the purpose. The business was the vehicle. What we were fighting for was our freedom to be reliant on ourselves and not reliant on anybody else. You know, we don't want government paychecks. I don't want a government paycheck. I don't want stimulus money. I just want to be able to go to work and provide for my family. I don't think that's too much to ask for. And they demonize that for so many people. And that was something that was a fight that was worth having for us, because we made that observation very early, was that the options were very clear and there was only one or two. And you said that, like, that was it for us. When we realized, hey, we're going to lose all this if we don't do something, you know, it was the same way I would protect anything in my life. You know, the same way I would protect my family at my house, or anything else like that. So it was automatic for us, and it wasn't so much courage that made us make that move, but understanding that there was a necessity to choose that.
Right on. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people out there that appreciate all that you guys have done for that. With those nasty phone calls or those nasty voicemails, have you saved them? Are you going to compilate them and maybe put together like a Jerky Boys mixtape?
That actually would have been pretty good, especially because Frank used to field a lot of them. And like I said, Frank is definitely the smarter of the two, and you can't pull anything on him, especially about the virus. He's studied it so extensively that he will run circles around you if you are even slightly off the mark. And we had doctors call, and he would spend 45 minutes on the phone with a doctor who was screaming at him, who like wasn't even a doctor who really would be an expert in the field. Like, he's not an epidemiologist. It would be like some
chiropractor,
some like ER doctor or something. And it would be some ER doctor who was overwhelmed emotionally by what he was seeing. You know, and Frank would run circles around these people, you know, and he would be like, oh, you know, so, you know, tell me about all the people that are dying, you know, and Frank would be like, well, what drug are you using on them? And he'd be like, I'll bet you any amount of money it's remdesivir. And the doctor would be like, yeah, how'd you know? And he'd be like, yeah, well, you know, and he would just rattle off statistics about how this drug wasn't tested. And, you know, he would run circles around these people. And a lot of them were either left speechless. Some of them apologized. We've had people come into the store months later and said, you know, we had a guy actually come in. He called in, and Frank was talking to him for about 45 minutes, and he came out of the office. And I was like, you know, like, who was that? And he's like, do you remember when the phone would ring, and he's like, it would be just like, you had to pick up the phone. That was the hard part, was we had to pick up our phone no matter how many times it rang, because with all of the hatred, there was a tremendous amount of support. People were calling, so we had to answer the phone every single time. And there was a point where somebody was calling every single day, several hundred times a day. And this guy wound up calling just recently, and he was like, "Hey," he's like, "I don't know if you guys remember, but I back in whatever, but I was calling every day, and I was screaming at you, several hundred calls a day, and it was coming from this number." And Frank was like, "Yeah, I fucking remember you, bro." And he's like, I wanted to call to apologize. And he's like, I finally get it. He's like, and you guys were right. And he's like, I was so emotional and this and that. And he wound up talking to Frank about, he lost a family member, and it actually wound up being a mislabeled COVID death. And, he didn't realize it until much later. And it was just really cool seeing that, where this guy took the time to say, "Hey, listen, I want to support you guys. I just bought some t-shirts, but I just wanted to call and say, like, please don't stop what you're doing." So it's been pretty cool. As crazy as an experience has been, and all the bad times, there's stuff like that where it reminds you, where you're like, man, this is what it's all about. Like, this is why we did this. Because we were fighting for people, not only fighting for ourselves, but fighting for people that supported us. But we've been fighting for people who don't support us. Because at the end of the day, we're fighting for the ability to just live your life in peace.
Did you ever surprise yourself, or did you know all along that Airey and Smith, and that this is how it's going to go? Was there ever a period where, holy shit, I'm doing this?
Yeah, no, pretty much every day. No, I mean, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, would I have ever imagined even anything close to something like this happening? It would have been a no. I didn't see myself as unimportant, but I didn't necessarily see myself as somebody that people would follow and look to for guidance in the way that people have started to look to Frank and I. And I think Frank can say the same thing. People come to us and rely on us for a lot now. We give a lot of people information. We try to stay as updated as possible, and people base a lot of their decisions based on the things that we find out and that we share with them. And it's definitely something I would have never expected. It's kind of awesome. Comes with, it comes with some trade-offs. You always have to be considerate of what you're doing, because there are a lot of people who support us. And we not only represent ourselves, but we represent them. But that's a cool responsibility to have. It makes you kind of more aware of who you are and where you stand and stuff. So it helps you grow, I think. But definitely was not planned. I'm actually, it's funny because, before this, I at least tended to be very introverted. I have my friends and stuff like that. And, I was really about just building my business and being a gym owner. And it's forced me to grow as a person and be more social and kind of care about others more, because I can't say that I was always like that. I definitely wouldn't have died on this, fell on my sword for anybody, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And now it's like, I'm happy to sacrifice for what I believe is the greater good. And I can say the same thing for Frank.
Right on. That's I keep saying we are very grateful. You're an inspiration, you're a motivation, and we definitely need more strong men like yourself in the world, and encouraging other men to be strong and to stand up for what they believe in, and for their own personal rights and everyone else's rights, and for freedom. I got actually two last questions here for you, then I'll pass it over to Jim. The first one, I used to travel a lot for work and for other things before March of 2020, and I've flown twice since then. And I love your post, because you've drawn that line in the sand, and I'm not fucking doing this. Do you have any advice for people who want to travel that route and just don't want to. I mean, I know you deal with the bullshit, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you're breathing fresh air or somewhat fresh recycled air at least.
You have to, when you draw your line in the sand, wherever it is, and with whatever it is, whether it be masks or whatever, you have to be prepared for the consequences that deal with that. Like, and it's not fair. It's not going to be fair. So you can't really get hung up on that. But it's just something you just have to be relentless with. I've exhausted every avenue. I've been banned from 2-3 airlines. Because they wouldn't offer exemptions, and I flew anyway. I fly with United a lot because they are their process to get an exemption was fair. You know what I mean? And I went through the avenues to get it, and it was worth doing. I deal with Southwest, who doesn't give me exemptions, and I fly with them anyway, and that's a headache. So it's just a matter of it's like, all right, this is my line in the sand. If I have to do things that are going to be inconvenient and uncomfortable, that comes with standing your ground. I've had to drive sometimes. I've had medical exemptions where I'll have a medical exemption and TSA is like, oh, we don't offer medical exemptions, so you have to wear the mask through this security checkpoint. And it's like, I can't do that. I'm not gonna do it because it's convenient. You know what I mean? Like I could just slap that on my face and go through, but like, no, I'm not fucking doing it. Sorry. So that time I had to drive. I drove from New Jersey all the way to Michigan. I've had the same thing happen. I got stuck in LA for an extra night because of the TSA, and because I didn't have an exemption or whatever. So you exhaust every avenue. If you can make it work with exemptions, you figure it out. You do whatever you got to do. If not, you try anyway. And I always just book a rental car just in case. If there was some better, and that's the process with all this stuff. Whatever you're going to resist, or however you're going to resist, or whatever you're going to fight for, whether it be your kids in schools, or wherever the stand you're going to take is, people have to start realizing that it's not going to be comfortable, that there often aren't clear answers, that the deck is often not stacked in your favor, and that you will have to get creative, and that just is what it is. But in doing so, it's extremely liberating not being susceptible to the bullshit and just kind of expecting it and just being like, whatever, you still can't tell me what to do. And you watch people squirm when they can't control you. And it's worth it, because you're like, no, you like, no matter how inconvenient you make it for me, I will not, my principles are this, and I will not bend to that. And that's a really good feeling, to be that sure of yourself.
Yeah, I'll bet. It may not look like it now, but over the last 10 years, I've had pretty healthy beards in the last decade. And I'm just curious, because I've broken 3 times after, either in Oklahoma or here in Denver, after extended periods of like 100+ days and maybe 85 to 90% humidity, where I couldn't take it anymore. So I'm just curious how you've managed to, because I know what goes into a beard of that size, how you managed to make it through so many New Jersey summers.
Maybe it's because I started, I grew my first beard when I was living in Arizona, so maybe I just had like a good tolerance to it. I actually had long hair in Arizona too. But I don't know, it doesn't really bother. I think I'm just so used to it, it doesn't bother me. Because it's, with the exception of like when you're like really frustrated or something and like everything's pissing you off anyway, like I think that's probably the only time I'll really realize it. But it's just, it's like, it's part of me now. It's, so it's just second nature. I don't even think about it.
Right.
But those Arizona summers were killer. I do remember that.
Yeah. And I know I've like, after I've taken it down pretty much to a shadow the 3 times that I've done it. And, you know, the first time, whether I post something or a picture comes up on socials and people are like, I'm like, chill. It's okay, guys. It's just hair. It's going to be back in a couple months, you know?
I don't even know if anybody would recognize me.
No, definitely not.
I must ask you, owner of Attila's Gym, we're workout guys, trainers. What is your workout routine? Do you follow a program? You bodybuilder, powerlifter, CrossFit? How do you get down when you're in the gym?
You know, I've kind of bounced around quite a bit. My love is in strength. You know, I played with bodybuilding for a little while. Appreciate it, but it's not something that I loved. You know, especially the dieting aspect. That's not something I enjoy at all. And I don't really get the satisfaction. I don't get the same amount of satisfaction as like looking super like lean and cut as I do being able to move lots of weight. You know, I get much more of a release from that. I get much more satisfaction. So I've always been interested in strength. And that's kind of where I found my love, you know, with strongman, stuff like that. I haven't been able to compete in a while. It's something I've toyed with kind of coming back into. Right now, I do a lot of just very kind of odd training. I incorporate a lot of strongman, a lot of heavy lifts, but a lot of dynamic stuff too. So unless I'm training for something specific, I kind of just go with the flow, especially with just what's going on right now. I make sure I do my walks and stuff daily, but my weightlifting is, I have fun with it at this point. You know, there's not a lot of structure, especially when I'm training. It's not so much fun as it is like work, you know. So now I'm just kind of enjoying training. I've been doing a lot more mixed martial arts. Really enjoying that, kind of loosening up after being so stiff and stressed for 20 months.
Right on. That's awesome. Yeah, we're both at the point where we like to play when we're either in the gym or grab a kettlebell and go do farmers walks. But yeah, I totally respect that. So first rapid fire question I got for you is, are you a coffee drinker?
Yes, I am.
How do you take your coffee and how do you brew your coffee?
So I do espresso shots. I do espresso in the morning. Wife makes it for me. And sometimes we'll do a latte in the morning.
Nice. Do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis so that you're showing up as the strongest version of Ian Smith?
Usually my drives to work and my drive home, because there's so much going on, just with work and with everything that has come of this fight, I usually just take that as like my quiet time. So like I won't listen to any music or anything like that. And that's kind of my time to reflect, on the day ahead and just kind of think about what I need to get done and what I want to accomplish and try to make sure that I'm heading into work, especially because it's so unpredictable, what happens, that I'm just kind of ready for the day and going in there with a cool head, because we've been under so much stress that if you're not able to control that, it winds up controlling you. And I learned that along the way that, I had to really take care of myself up top. So that's like my daily routine. And then on the way home, I'll reflect on the day and make sure that I try to unwind as much as possible. That way, when I do come home, I can enjoy my time at home and it's not, for a while there, it got into a 24-hour or 7-day a week kind of thing where all we did was this fight. And we had to at the time, but it's something that can really wear you down. So I make sure that's something that doesn't happen again with just those two little things.
So I know you said you like quiet on the drives, but when you are listening to anything, what are you listening to music-wise, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything right now?
So I'm a big fan of Andy Frisella's podcast. That's probably one of the only ones I listen to is Real AF. That's an awesome podcast because oftentimes it's a reflection of how I feel and how I think. And coming from somebody that I have a strong relationship with and that has helped me a lot in terms of working through all of this. There's always something in there that kind of catches me. Music wise, my truck is loud, so my music is usually louder. You know, I'll throw on anything that's loud. I like good music in general. But I like to vary it. Really depends on the mood. You know, sometimes it'll be some gangster rap, sometimes it'll be some, you know, some loud metal. Sometimes it's some, you know, some drum and bass music or some trance, just something that makes you wake up. You know, that's what I like music to be stimulating and kind of invigorating, you know, because I'm usually lifting while I'm listening. So
Right on. And last but certainly not least, this used to be a more lighthearted question before March of 2020, and then it's taken a turn, but we know we're in a good place here with you. Do you have a favorite conspiracy theory? Do you ever find yourself late night in a YouTube wormhole about flat Earth or aliens? Have you ever experienced Bigfoot in South Jersey?
Jersey
do I have a favorite conspiracy theory? Man, I am a conspiracy theorist. I think you can definitely say that. I've always been fascinated with listening to, I guess, alternative views of either history or current events. I don't know if I have a favorite, man. Okay, so I actually do have. I have one that's I'm most fascinated by, and that is the idea that there's quite a bit of underground networks and tunnels that the military uses, and that we know very, very little of it. And it's in all likelihood and probability so far beyond what we think it is that that it would be hard to wrap our head around what is below some areas of the country. That's one that truly fascinates me because it's very hard to find reliable information on that. So it's one of these things like when I can find a video on it, it does captivate me because I want to know if there's, you know, something more conclusive that I can kind of base my thoughts on.
Did you happen to swing by NORAD the last time you were in Colorado Springs?
I didn't. I was, you know, I was super pressed for time, but that's definitely a thought that I did have. Hopefully next time I'm in the area, I'll have some time to explore.
Yeah, I was recently just listening to a podcast, and they were kind of poo-pooing the thought of a 75-mile tunnel from DIA to NORAD, and I think, well, I'm pretty sure there's bet my house on the fact that there is one.
Yeah, that is pretty fascinating.
Ian, thank you so much, man. It was an honor. We've been following you since day one, and the fact that you took time out of your day means the world to us. So thank you for all you do, and keep on keeping on, brother.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, guys. You have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you. You too, Ian. Appreciate your time.
Yep. Have a good one.
Take care, bud.
Later.